Not all wrestling villains are two-dimensional bad guys. Whether they're trying to change our negative ways or are breaking out of an image that has been forced on them by the paying audience and/or upper management, it can often be incredibly compelling to see a babyface strike out and change their ways for completely understandable reasons. These relatable choices aren't supposed to be easy to digest, otherwise we'd be cheering for the wrong person, right? But a villain who provokes you into questioning your allegiances makes for a hell of a more interesting watch than the alternative cartoon mustache twiddler. Yes. I'm Gareth from What Culture Wrestling, and here are 10 WWE villains with understandable motives. Number 10, Randy Orton, underappreciated in his own time. Even though he'd no doubt done all there is to do, Randy Orton still felt that he wasn't being given enough credit from both the fans and current roster. So Orton turned his back on the lukewarm support he had garnered in his latest babyface stretch on SmackDown, and relished in a new darker edge to his character. Citing his fury at being disrespected for too long by the fans and stars in the back, who eat at the table he set for them, Orton set about targeting our heroes. Feuds with Jeff Hardy, AJ Styles, Kofi Kingston, and now Edge have followed, with Orton growing more bitter by the day about being undermined throughout his 18-year service in WWE. All he needed was a little love, guys. That's all he needed. Number 9, Nails, wanting retribution for being abused by his prison guard. Nails, or Kevin Wacholtz, debuted in 1992 and put together a series of promos that accused one big bossman of abusing the former inmate during his sentence, because bossman was of course the guard. Looking as though he'd literally just jumped the prison walls, Nails, dressed in an orange jumpsuit, surprised bossman on the May 30th episode of Superstars of Wrestling. He then handcuffed the former prison guard to the top rope and beat him with his own nightstick. The two would blow off the feud at Survivor Series in a nightstick match, which Nails lost. Incredibly, Bossman was positioned as the babyface throughout all of this, fending off a man that he physically bullied in jail. You can't help but feel as though Nails was entitled to beat his rival to a pulp, if, as he stated, he was in fact innocent and didn't commit his unspecified crimes. Number 8, Batista, rightful face of the company. Both winning world titles at WrestleMania 21 and becoming the flag bearers of their assigned brand, Batista and John Cena were kept separate for what felt like an eternity. Then, when Batista was drafted to Raw in 2008, the two would finally be found on the same show, and a showdown between the leading babyfaces would take place at that year's SummerSlam. They would then be kept apart for a while longer, only for Batista to be granted a WWE title match with Cena, after an Elimination Chamber victory, at the titular event in 2010, which he won. Their program running into WrestleMania 26 revolved around Batista's on-screen angst at being shunted as the legitimate top guy in the company in favor of Cena. Batista admitted that the two were the biggest stars since the Attitude Era in a promo, but felt that the magazine covers, movies and commercials should have been offered to him too. You couldn't exactly argue with those points, as Batista had proven to be as valuable a commodity as Cena up until that moment. And like anyone who knows their worth, he wanted to be afforded the same treatment as his rival. Number 7, The Miz, overlooked no more. After his rocky start in the company had subsided, it wasn't long before The Miz was carving out his place in the company, through tag and mid-card title runs, Money in the Bank wins, and even a WWE Championship victory. He then regained the Intercontinental title in 2016 on the post-WrestleMania 32 Monday Night Raw, and went about adding some long overdue meaning to that championship. After this, he would go on to be drafted to SmackDown and would cut a promo that single-handedly reignited his career, chastising Daniel Bryan for promising the fans he would return to wrestling when he knew at the time that he definitely couldn't do so in a WWE ring. The reigning Intercontinental Champion pulled no punches when referencing his own lack of injuries, and just how overlooked he'd been in comparison to this coward in front of him. His newfound realization of how valuable he was would go on to be a defining weapon in Miz's latest stretch as an MVP heel champion, and even led to the fans on Raw cheering for him when he was stood opposite Roman Reigns and John Cena on an August 2017 edition of the show. Number 6, Seth Rollins taking control of his future. The Shield are ranked as one of the most dominant factions WWE has ever seen for a reason. Taking apart everyone from The Undertaker to CM Punk, they were determined to enforce their own brand of justice on an unsuspecting roster. Therefore, it was quite a surprise when Seth Rollins decided to turn his back on his fellow Hounds of Justice, in favour of a deal with the devil himself, Triple H. But why did he do this? Despite the live crowd calling him a sellout, Rollins saw it as buying into his future, and that the move was best for business. And we would hear that quite a lot in the future. Even though his old team were incredibly over and the move came out of nowhere, as Randy Orton would put it, it now looked as though Rollins had every right to feel as though he was being held back, and, after he decided to do something about it, his career flourished as the focal point of WWE's new heel stable. If you were offered the world, would you turn it down? You probably wouldn't, would you? Number 5, CM Punk, trying to cleanse us all. Long before he was the voice of the voiceless, CM Punk was using his microphone and WWE platform to inspire us all to alter our toxic ways and shift over to a straight edge lifestyle. Coming in the wake of Punk's feud with the antithesis of this way of life, Jeff Hardy, the eventual cult of personality drafted in Festus and transformed him into the focused Luke Gallows after getting him off prescription pain pills. He would later add Serena and Joey Mercury to the converted straight edge society. Punk just wanted us to save ourselves before it was too late, and used events such as the Royal Rumble to conduct services on how straight edge could change our lives. Again, sometimes he would flex his newfound muscle in controversial ways, but his underlying goal was still a positive one. Number 4, Charlotte Flair proving she is the best. When you followed in the footsteps of the dirtiest player in the game, Ric Flair, you'd have expected Charlotte Flair to have adopted a loopholed approach to pro wrestling. Although she's not completely averse to bending the rules, Flair tends to use her incredible athletic ability and unrivaled power to get one over on her rivals. As a heel, she makes no bones about being the queen of WWE, which is not exactly an overstatement on her behalf. An unprecedented 10 women's title reign showcases just how hard she's worked to be at the top of the mountain. And even though she is the first to laud her success, can you blame her? She's similar to professional footballer Cristiano Ronaldo, in that she is fiercely competitive but also revels in being better than everybody else. No one likes a show-off. Yet, if you had the sheer talent of Charlotte Flair, wouldn't you be happy to tell the world about it? Number 3, Eddie Guerrero, I'm your papi. Even at the worst of times, it was pretty hard not to love Eddie Guerrero. That's why it was so jarring to see our beloved anti-hero tearing his former partner Rey Mysterio to pieces, following an attack from his nephew Chavo Guerrero and Eminem. How could he do this? Well, after the two clashed at Judgment Day and the Great American Bash in 2005, Guerrero revealed to the world that he was in fact the legitimate father of Mysterio's son, Dominic. With this knowledge now revealed to the public, Mysterio fought to protect his son from his blood pappy. It turned out that after Mysterio and his wife had told Guerrero they were having trouble conceiving, he offered to allow them to adopt his son who had been born out of wedlock. Clearly, Guerrero was suffering with the conflict that came with the realization of the mistake he had made when he gave up his son. His methods in revealing and trying to pry his son away from a loving home after so much time had passed were questionable at best. But you could still sympathize with the whirlwind of emotions that must have been driving the supposed heel to do what he did. Number 2, Daniel Bryan, Planet's champion. Only in this day and age could fans boo a man who was preaching about trying to save the planet. Yet after Daniel Bryan low-blowed himself to world title glory in a 2018 SmackDown match with the WWE champion AJ Styles, we suddenly found ourselves with a heel D-Bry for the first time in years. The new Daniel Bryan claimed that fans weren't with him throughout his recovery and stated how he was simply doing what he needed to do in order to fulfill his dreams. By completely disowning the fickle WWE universe, Bryan instead became the Planet's champion and dedicated his reign to chastising the consumer culture that was destroying the world we live in. It was pretty difficult to argue with someone who was driven to salvaging what was left of the globe. And before long, the cheers became deafening again. And we now currently find ourselves with a babyface Daniel Bryan once more. Number 1, Bayley, tired of being a pushover. After years of crappy treatment, subpar billing compared to her fellow horsewomen, and even being distanced from her tag partner Sasha Banks, Bayley found herself with the SmackDown Women's title around her waist, cashing in her Money in the Bank briefcase on the same night she won it. Surely now she would receive that well-earned spotlight, right? Yet it wasn't to be. Her feuds were overshadowed by whatever Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, and Banks were doing. Then, after being shunted again as a credible face of the division, Bayley snapped following a tag match pitting the Raw and SmackDown Women's Champions, Becky Lynch and Bayley, against the Women's Tag Champions, Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross, beating her partner to a pulp with a steel chair. After losing her title to Charlotte Flair at Hell in a Cell, Bayley would banish her hugging persona and cut down her Bayley buddies, along with her hair, on SmackDown. Then, after winning her title back on the same show, she would tell the fans in attendance to screw themselves. Her belittling and puppy dog days seem to be over. Bayley finally seized control of her persona and severed all responsibility to those who once stood by and watched her suffer. She's not quite hit it off as the full-blown heel we were expecting, but there's still time for Bayley to prove why she is the top dog in WWE's women's division. And that's our list. Know of any other WWE villains with understandable motives? Let us know all about them in the comments section right down there. And do not forget to like, share, and click on that subscribe button. Also, why not head on over to whatculture.com and click on some more incredible articles just like this one. I've been Gareth from What Culture Wrestling. Thank you very much for watching. Have the best of days, and I shall see you very, very soon.